Hey everybody, this is Chris with PhoneArena, and today we'll be taking a look at the dual SIM HTC Desire 310. Now, the 310 is seemingly intended to help HTC search into the lower cost segment, though its price tag of about $220 in the US kind of disagrees with that notion. But perhaps that doesn't matter, as the jury is still out on whether the 310 is enough of a phone to justify its pricing. So let's find out if it is. The HTC Desire 310 has the bearing of an entry-level low-cost device, and its design and overall looks do not simply reinforce that notion. They are making the statement itself. The 310, which tips the scales at almost 5 ounces, has that cookie-cutter rounded look with a chubby profile that measures in at 0.44 inches. But it is solidly made and has pleasantly rounded corners that our hands readily agree with. Moreover, the matted polycarbonate back is also welcome, as it repels fingerprints with a decent degree of success. We have both the power button and the volume rocker on the right side of the device, and though they are ergonomically placed, they actually offer unsatisfying tactile feedback and poor travel times. A 4.5-inch glass with a resolution of 480 by 854 pixels is what you have to make do with as far as the Desire 310's display is concerned. The IPS panel manages a pixel density of 218 ppi, which is not impressive but not terrible for its class either. What's terrible about the screen, however, is its extremely cold core temperature of almost 19,000 kelvins, which results in some very bluish whites and greys. What's more, color reproduction is completely off, with pretty much every primary or secondary color showing some critical discrepancies between target and actual colors. This issue is especially noticeable with green, magenta and cyan. Last but not least, the Desire 310's display is absolutely unsuited for use outdoors in conditions other than murky, overcast weather. Its peak brightness of just 288 nits is just poor even in this class, and will not permit you to see much of the screen when the sun is shining over your shoulder. It should be no surprise to hear that the 310 makes use of HTC's custom Sense UI slapped on top of Android Jelly Bean. The surprising part comes when you realize that this is some kind of a Frankenstein of a software that we haven't seen from HTC before. Simply put, you have a partial Sense 5 look stitched together with stock Android. So while the home screen and the drawer look like Sense 5, the status bar including the settings and most of the icons are strictly stock Android. Quite frankly, we weren't sure what to make of this, as we don't mind the simplistic looks of stock Android, but it still felt sort of weird to have it fitted together with the Sense skin. So while some of the usual design and functional peculiarities of Sense, like the dedicated blink feed home screen, is still here, the rest is strictly vanilla Android. An undeniable perk of the Desire 310 is the availability of 2 SIM slots which work in dual standby configuration. Said in plain language, this means that you can only make use of one SIM at any one time, so if you're in a call on SIM 1, SIM 2 will be unavailable and vice versa. It's also worth keeping in mind that only the first SIM slot supports 3G connectivity, the second one is stuck with 2G. An entry-level model the 310 may be, but that doesn't mean you have to suffer through painful hang-ups and load times. Navigating throughout the UI and indeed throughout apps is speedy and responsive. The quad-core MediaTek chip the phone is packing is actually quite potent for this class. What's more, the silicon actually allows for a bit more serious gaming thanks to its dual-core Mali 400 GPU, though the 512 MB of RAM do put a ceiling on what it can do, both in terms of gaming and multitasking. Speaking of a ceiling, the 4 GB of onboard storage are also quite limiting, as only 2 GB of it is actually user available. Thankfully, there's a slot for a micro SD card, and obtaining one is pretty much a must. Browsing on the Desire 310 is actually pleasant, as load speeds are acceptable and navigating around even larger pages is done without a hitch for the most part. Unfortunately, image-heavy websites do sometimes cause some strain, but that's just the way it is when you've got such a limited amount of RAM available. As for connectivity options, we have 3G speeds of up to 21 megabits, Bluetooth 4.0 and GPS with GLONASS support. On the technical side, the Desire 310's camera is kind of unimpressive if you consider this a mid-range device. We've got a 5 megapixel shooter at the back with fixed focus and no LED flash for even a chance at low light photography. But we've seen other phones like the Nokia Lumia 525 make such a configuration work. So does the 310? Simply put, not really. But let's first talk camera UI. Unsurprisingly, we have the stock camera interface, which is fairly simple but not very easy on the eyes. You get a somewhat rich set of shooting modes, including HDR, panorama, auto scene and smile detection, and on the whole the camera is quick to take a snap and then commit it to its memory. Alright, so image quality. Well, color reproduction with stills is fairly good and exposure was consistently set properly despite the murky day outside. On the downside, images came out pretty soft and noisy, a combination which manages to obscure what little fine detail the snapshot can actually capture. Indoors, in low light environments, we got mixed results. Some of our shots were perfectly acceptable, but others came out with a weird color balance. As the Desire 310 lacks LED flash, it will sometimes opt for really long shutter speeds, resulting in blurry shots if you're not perfectly still. As for video, the snapper on the Desire 310 is capable of 1080p video capture. In reality, however, the resulting clips are just disappointing as they have a very poor amount of detail. Otherwise, exposure is again set correctly and colors are also true to what we were seeing with our own eyes. So in a nutshell, the results are usable but definitely not high definition. Taking care of your multimedia needs is the usual of a newer Android stack. We have Play Music and the gallery's built-in photo viewer and video player. As always, these are all down to the point tools, so if you're looking for something a tad more functional, you have to go fish. So how does the 310 handle media? Well, this is actually one of the few things that HTC has gotten right. Both headphone and loudspeaker volume output is pretty loud, though sound fidelity has taken a hit, but not a too harsh one. Moreover, the chip powering the phone also manages to render 1080p videos with ease, and we weren't put off by the relatively low pixel density when watching clips off YouTube. As for call quality, this is an area in which the Desire 310 thoroughly disappoints, though the in-ear speaker proved far more inferior to the microphone. So whereas the latter offered middling performance with no extreme distortions, the former was just downright horrific. Overall sound quality is simply bad, voices are distorted and their natural timbre is gone. In fact, we could honestly be fooled by whoever is on the other side, as tonal information is just irrecoverably lost. A removable battery with a capacity of 2000 mAh is what we have underneath the shell of the HTC Desire 310. That's actually a decently sized cell when you take the rest of the internals into account and provides a satisfying day and a half or more of usage depending on how hard you push it. HTC's own measurements rated good for up to 11 hours of talk time and 35.5 days of standby time on a 3G network. The first figure is a tad underwhelming, though we definitely notice just how well the 310 keeps its charge when not in use. In conclusion, at $220, HTC is just asking way too much for the 310. Quite frankly, competition from the likes of the Motorola Moto G, the Nokia Lumia 525, or even the more exotic Lenovo S660 is just too much for the Desire 310 to handle. With the exception of the Lumia 525, which basically matches the 310 spec sheet, HTC's device is just outclassed by Motorola's and Lenovo's offerings. Whether we're talking about the cookie cutter design and underwhelming display, or the Frankenstein of a software and poor call quality, it's safe to say that we're expecting more of a bang for our buck at this point in time. Once again, this was Chris with PhoneArena, until next time.